speaker is Lauren Diener. She is a biologist specializing in endangered and threatened species recovery, avian studies, and avian translocation. Lauren has conducted annual scrub-jay territory surveys for 40 family groups, located nests, and monitoring productivity. She has a USFWS, United States Fish and Wildlife Service, banding permit, and has banded nestlings, adults, and collected blood samples, analyzed data, and prepared annual reports on translocation research. She received her Bachelor's of Science from the University of Delaware and a Master's from Georgia Southern University. She is currently employed by Flatwoods Consulting Group.
There you go. And you should be able to use this to walk around.
Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to see so many people at an Audubon meeting. I'm going to be talking mostly today about mosaic Florida scrub-jay translocation. That took place in Manatee County, Florida, so Gulf Coast of Florida, south of Tampa, a couple hours. So before I talk about that, I want to tell you a little bit about my journey to becoming a wildlife biologist. I get this question a lot. How did you know you wanted to be a wildlife biologist? And I like to tell people it's because when I was 7, we got our first computer. Big thing, first computer. And my brother never let me have my turn. So I went outside to play because there was nothing else to do. And I kind of fell in love with the outdoors. I still never got my turn on the computer. But I think the real inspiration was in my first grade class, we had a speaker come in and give us a talk on bluebirds. And it happened to be my friend and his dad. And so Mr. Wheelwright was his name, Dr. Wheelwright. He came in, he gave this great presentation on bluebirds, and I'm pretty sure that I didn't shut up about it for a month. And probably drove my parents nuts. And so my dad put a bluebird box in our backyard. Bluebirds came and nested in it, and he got Dr. Wheelwright to come to our backyard to band the nestlings. And so as a 6 or 7-year-old, he put little baby nestling bluebirds in my hands, and I'm pretty sure that was it. So what did I do to become a wildlife biologist? I mean, the first thing that happened to me was my parents sat me down as a junior in high school, and they gave me this great big book. There's a thick book that you can get at the bookstore. It's full of every single college in existence in the US and every single major that you could possibly major in. And they said, pick 5. You have a 4-hour race. That was daunting. Thankfully, I knew that I enjoyed wildlife, I enjoyed the outdoors. In high school, I was in the Girl Scouts. Little beknownst tip for even back in the day, you could also join Boy Scouts. My dad was a scoutmaster, and he joined what's called a venture crew, which is unique just for the ages of 16 to 18, and so I joined that. I tried really hard to get a bunch of my friends to join. I said, this is going to be great, backpacking, hiking, it's going to be awesome. I went on one backpacking trip by myself with a bunch of 16-year-old boys and decided I would never do it again. That may have been genius on his part. So I also, I did environment competition in high school. It's a program for high school students to learn about the environment, 5 categories, wildlife, aquatics, forestry, learn so much in that. And it's a national competition, so you compete at the local level and can work your way up. And then I also volunteered at a nature center on the weekends. So I already started working with animals and education and bringing in the public in order to bring more awareness to nature. So then I went to college. I decided to go to University of Delaware. It was within the 4-hour radius, so my parents were happy. I tried really hard to go to University of Hawaii, and they wouldn't have anything to do. I took every opportunity that I possibly could to learn, to experience, to do, and I encourage everyone who's on this journey to figure out what part of the environment they want to go into to do that, to take advantage of any opportunity they can. My first internship was actually in wetland delineation at the University of Delaware, working for a PhD student there. during the winter. It was the coldest winter in a decade. You can't see it in that picture, but through most of the winter, we were chiseling through ice to measure the topography across a wetland. I decided I was never going to work in the winter outdoors ever again. I solved that problem by moving to Florida. I volunteered with the long-tailed salamander project for another grad student. I helped out another student with the white-tailed deer project where they put GPS collars on deer, so I can gladly say that I have sat on a 250-pound doe. And then I did an internship at Tri-State Rescue and Research. This is a bird rehabilitation center. I got great experience there. I learned how to lead oil spill wash line there. I've handled every species under the sun at that facility. They taught me a great deal. And then I did an internship with the University of Maine in Orono, working with hermit thrushes, breeding in a management forest, and I did that for 2 summers. So that's an awful lot to do just in undergrad. On top of all of my classes, I had a double major. But it was well worth it. And I came out of the University of Delaware certified as an associate wildlife biologist, which means I fulfilled all the course requirements to be certified. Then I got a job. And that was, I started out really ambitious, really excited, and I was like, I'm gonna apply to all of these really cool bird jobs. And I applied to everything that seemed super awesome, birds, bird-oriented, and I wasn't getting any of them. So then I started applying to anything and everything I was remotely qualified for, and landed a job in Florida with a consulting firm, and started getting lots of experience in Florida, a wider breadth of experience. I did land use mapping, where there's biologists that go out, map all the natural areas, figure out where habitat types are, the different types of habitats, how much we have in a certain area. I started working with some birds again. I started working on a Florida scrub-jay translocation. I did some burrowing owl translocations. I did some seagrass surveys. Had nothing to do with birds, but it was still fun. I tromped through wetlands, learned how to identify a lot of wetland plants. I wrote grants. I ran a migratory bird station for a while, looking at the use of created coastal uplands by migratory songbirds in an area that was once just nothing but tomato row crops, and they planted it into a forest, and so I studied the migratory songbirds' use of it about 15 years into the creation of that forest. I volunteered for a project on the weekends to capture Nelson's and salt marsh sparrows to look at the distribution in the Tampa Bay area. Then I went to grad school. Actually, the Scrub-Jay project was a huge inspiration for that. We had lots of data. I had so much fun chasing after Scrub-Jays, as you'll see in a little bit. And I really wanted to know what to do with all of that data. It was really exciting. It was a new project, innovative, and to me, all of the answers were in those data. What can I get out of that? What can we learn, and what can we apply to better preserve that species? But I went to grad school in Georgia, and there weren't Florida scrub-jays there, so I decided to work with Wilson's plovers, and I studied Wilson's plovers on Cumberland Island National Seashore for 2 years. I got to pick whatever project I wanted to do, and in the end, I was extremely grateful that my project included walking up and down the beach of a national seashore every day. I also found a really rare bird in Georgia. There are lots of people who don't let me let this down. I was leading a class field trip for ornithology, my students' first field trip, and I stopped at a point and I pointed out, here's a mourning dove, and here's a sapsucker, and here's your life-fur eastern bluebird, and I turned to scan a pond, and there is this bird, and the picture is about as good as the conditions were at the time, except that originally the bird's head was pointed backwards, so I couldn't see it. And I suddenly start screaming northern lapwing really loud, and all 12 of my students are looking at me like I'm cross-eyed because they just looked at their life-or eastern bluebird. Thankfully, there was one other grad student in that class, and I yanked her and I said, look in the scope you're looking at a shorebird. It has a broad black chest band across the breast, and it has a little tuft that comes out of its head. And she goes, yes, I see all that. What is it? And I said, that's a northern lapwing. That thing's from like England. And she goes, whoa! And I said, yeah. And so I whipped out my phone, I got a terrible picture of it, and then I quickly emailed my advisor and just said, Northern Lapwing, Alma Road, in the subject line, and that was it. He emailed me a little bit later with the words, are you kidding me, in all caps with about 30 exclamation points. I then went back to school. I had to drop all the kids off, and I was getting ready to teach my next lab of the day, which was biology 2. We were doing dissections that day. And I passed my advisor in the hallway, and he goes, hey, great find. The department chair and I, we're going to go out and look at it. Do you want to come with us? And I went, I would love to, but I have to teach a lab. And he goes, that's a bummer. I just canceled mine. And then I gave lots and lots of presentations through undergrad, through my career at the first consulting firm that I worked with, all through grad school, every opportunity, posters, presentations, Audubon societies. One of the great things about being a wildlife biologist, and something that we should all focus on, is sharing our knowledge. What are we learning? What can we do? How can we partner with citizen science to better conserve these species, to work together? And this is just one poster that I presented in Anchorage this past summer at the American Ornithologist Society meeting. So after grad school, I got another job. It really is nice to do it. My parents prefer it. So I moved back to Florida. I got a job with Wetlands consulting firm. And I worked with them for several years, and then the Scrub-Jay project kind of fell back in my lap again. So I'm out again chasing Scrub-Jays. But I love them, and I never stopped loving them, so that's how I became a wildlife biologist and where I am now. So before I talk about the actual translocation project, how many people here have